welcome back to the Kaiju Cataclysm. I'm Dragon.
I'm Ashley.
Today we are watching, or rather talking about the film that we watched twice, Pacific Rim Uprising. The long-awaited sequel, the sequel we thought for a while we were never going to get, because it was kind of off again, on again, and it was to a film that, while did okay, enough so we could entertain the notion of a sequel, didn't exactly, knock it out of the park enough so where it was a guaranteed.
Yeah.
But it's finally here, a good 5 years later. We've talked about it a couple times on the show before, mainly just kind of giving speculations, but now that we've seen it, we can discuss it as it actually is. So, as always, what did you think?
Why do you guys ask me first?
I don't know. I'm a gentleman. Shit, alright, fuck you. No one cares what you think.
No, it's good. It was definitely good. I mean, obviously, any Pacific Rim is better than none. I mean, I liked the movie a lot. I think the first one I still like better, but this movie was super fun and entertaining.
As opposed to the first one.
Well,
just kidding. Just kidding.
You know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I too like the first one more, but I chalk that up to as the fact that when the first one was directed by Guillermo del Toro, and I am a big Guillermo del Toro fan, and the reason I'm a big Guillermo del Toro fan is I like his style, his art sensibility. So I'm not just arbitrarily being like, well, it's not a Guillermo del Toro movie, which I've heard some people say and kind of give it that whole thing. But I just like his approach to visuals more. That's why I like his movies.
Yeah.
And this one, you could tell, was not a visually speaking, not a Guillermo del Toro movie. It was very much in the spirit of the first film. It definitely felt like a sequel to the first.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, this was a complete departure. It definitely was different in the ways it should be as a sequel, but it was similar in the right ways. But, DeKnight is a different director, so therefore it's not going to look like the same director. And I would have rather have him, put his own visual style on it rather than just copy Del Toro, because he has the right to kind of make the movie look the way he wants to make it look, regardless of who we're more of a fan of or what have you. But yeah, like you, I like kind of the visual tone of Del Toro's work. It has kind of more of a darker, hyper realistic, kind of take on it. Whereas this one was a lot sleeker, a lot cleaner. But I also know one of the main reasons for that too is also that John Boyega, in addition to starring in the film as Jake Pentecost, the son of the late Stacker Pentecost, played by Idris Elba in the first film, he's a huge anime fan. I mean, as is Del Toro, but Del Toro being older is more old school in terms of probably the anime and even just the kaiju films he likes. Whereas I know John Boyega likes a lot of more modern stuff. I mean, I think he's like in his mid-20s. I think he's 24, 25. So he grew up with more of the more 2000s stuff.
Yeah.
I kind of came up with more of like late 80s, 90s stuff, and Del Toro was probably all of that plus, even older. So you definitely had more of a modern anime feel to it, which again, in addition to loving kaiju movies, we also love anime. So when I heard they were leaning more towards the anime side of things, I was like, okay, that's cool too, because again, it's playing around in our other wheelhouse, and quite frankly, kind of giving us a taste of what a live-action anime adaptation would really look like. And there's no shortage of anime with big robots and what have you. Not a lot of kaiju anime, although it's starting to change now. We're starting to get some more kaiju stuff in anime, but traditionally, anime has always been kind of the medium for mechs. So it really felt more like a live action, anime or a mech anime, which was cool in and of itself. Because again, a lot of the things people were saying too is like, oh, it's going to be like Transformers now because there's Jaeger on Jaeger action in this movie. I'm sure that's going to be a hentai category soon. I'm sure someone's done it. But why? Why? Because someone. That's why. But yeah, and a lot of people are like, oh, now we're pulling away from the kaiju stuff and it's just going to be more Transformers. And admittedly, for a split second, when I first saw that first trailer and I saw two Jaegers clashing, I kind of had that. But then I remembered, that this is part of a larger genre. And while yes, I come more from the kaiju side of things, you know, you watch stuff like Gundam or, you know, even stuff like Evangelion. This movie actually reminded me... Bless you, madam. This movie actually reminded me a lot of the battle scene, especially at the end, a lot of like Evangelion.
Yeah.
Like the way the Jaegers were fighting the kaiju at the end. It really felt like, you know, kind of Ava's fighting angels.
Well, again, it was just... That was one of the things we always said about the first movie, is we really didn't get to see much of the other Jaegers fighting. They kind of got taken out right away.
They got some honorable mention Jaegers, some cameos, and then they were kind of...
So it was really nice to see, you know, you had like the, you know, what was it, 4 of them, I think? Was it 4 or 5?
4 or 5. Yeah, there was like 5 of them. Actually,
yeah.
Was it 6?
It was like 4 or 5, but... It was nice you got to kind of see like a team fight, so to speak, with them.
Yeah,
and each one, you know, was kind of a specialty one.
Yeah, because in the first film it was very much the Gypsy Danger show, and right away too I noticed too, even though this takes place 10 years after the first film, but since that time there's not been any more kaiju, but they've actually built new Jaegers. These are new Jaegers. So even though essentially the war is over, I think everyone got really scared straight by the end of the first film that they basically said, okay, well, let's just build more Jaegers just in case. So now we have... Well,
I mean, there's still use for them.
Well...
It's just not for fighting monsters.
Well, I kind of figure they're just there as, like, the security. Like, okay, we didn't kill off. That's the thing about a lot of people that, we destroyed the aliens, which now we know are called the precursors, the interdimensional beings that create and control and send out the kaiju. By the way, this will be a spoiler discussion, so we're going to get into some stuff pretty quick that's going to give away certain key things. So if you have not seen the movie and don't want to be spoiled, go watch the movie and then come back. Or if you just don't care, then okay, keep watching. But anyway, yes, they are called the precursors, and unlike what a lot of people believe when they, Gypsy Danger went nuclear, well, it's a whole other world on the other side. One nuke is not going to destroy an entire planet. Where I figured that was kind of just a base they were at where they were deploying kaiju, like a military base, and they just blew up that military base, and that base also had like their portal, their gateway in, but it didn't destroy the whole planet. They just sealed the breach, but they're still there. So in theory, who's to say they can't reopen it one day? So they have not only kind of kept the Jaeger program going, but they've built newer, more modern, more advanced Jaegers. So right away you see a world now that's not at war, but is filled with Jaegers. Whereas the first film, it was kind of the end of the war, and there weren't a lot of Jaegers left. And these Jaegers now, they're more special, because a lot of people were, one of the complaints I've heard are kind of, bad marks people have given this film, which I think is unfair, is that, they're just trying to sell toys now. They're just trying to sell products, because look at all the different kinds of Jaegers. They're naming each one off, isn't it? It's like,
but they had that before. You just didn't see them as
much.
Well,
first of all, if they are just trying to sell toys, I don't care, because I'd like to buy these toys. So X plus, get on it. 2, hey, I don't care if you're just trying to make a buck. If you want my money, give me something I want to spend my money on. I have no problem giving you my money. So if that's all this movie was supposed to be, this was a fantastic toy commercial, and I'd like another one, please. And 4... Or is that 3 or 4?
That's 3.
Okay, 3. So 4.
No, I think you're on. Whatever. Next one.
It doesn't matter. But the point is, it's like, but you have to realize. I mean, for people growing up in a world, I mean, I know people who are like, who are like military buffs, and they can tell you all the different kinds of, tanks and weapon. It's like people who follow athletes. I kind of feel like the Jaeger pilots, the Rangers, are almost like athletes, the way people view them. They know which or the Jaegers themselves are like almost like big athletes. Like the girl was saying, like, oh, that's this one, that's that one, and I'm kind of like, but you have to establish who these Jaegers are, or what these Jaegers. So it makes sense that you have a girl who's a fangirl. She's grown up in a world kind of idolizing Jaegers because they are their defense of that which killed her family.
Good to say.
So to her, she looks at it as a Jaeger, as a sense of empowerment. So she's into Jaeger. So when she sees them, it's like she's kind of like us. It's like, wow, that's that one, or that's that one. And because at the end of the last film, the reason why there weren't so many Jaegers was because the kaiju had gotten so big and so powerful that they, took most of them out. Yeah. So now these newer Jaegers, it makes sense, they're really specialized. They have all these different unique and attributes. They're less uniform and more specialized for different kinds of combat. And if you watch a lot of like mecha anime, especially stuff like Gundam, the Gundams, they're very different. They're different kinds. They're, you know, they specialize in different kinds of things. So this is very much an anime aesthetic, which again, so people who complain about this kind of thing, I think, are the same kind of people who thought the word kaiju was invented by Pacific Rim. And again, I always try to refrain from coming at these things as like an elitist, because yes, I know about kaiju, and yes, I know about it. So it's very easy for me to be like, actually, no. And it's like, but I get it.
Actually.
Yeah, exactly. I need to get a pair of glasses just for that. I gotta get my Gendo glasses and kind of be like that whole thing. Or is he's like this, right?
Yeah, I was like, you look like you're praying. If
yeah. Pray to God I don't choke a motherfucker. No, no, but it's like, but yeah, so I try to refrain from that. But a lot of people, and also need to realize, in Japanese culture, a lot of times we'll get one thing of it here. For instance, like Power Rangers. In Japan, it's not called Power Rangers, it's called Super Sentai, and it's part of a larger genre that involves Kamen Rider, depending on how you want to identify it, Ultraman, Spectreman, Zone Fighter, all that kind of thing. But in America, we only kind of have the one. So when you see something else that looks like it, people are like, oh, it's a ripoff of Power Rangers. Like, well, no, Power Rangers is a larger part of a larger whole.
Yeah.
A buddy of ours is a huge Pokemon fan. What? Someone liking Pokemon? Go figure. But, you know, he always gets mad when I say, I think Digimon is cooler. Hold your comments, because I can just feel that going under the keyboard. And he gets mad because he says, oh, Digimon's a ripoff of Pokemon. Well, no, if you go to Japan, well, and yes, even in Japan, Pokemon, out of that kind of genre, is still the biggest, most popular, but it's also recognized as part of a larger, overarching genre. So when you see something like Pacific Rim and people are saying, oh, they're just ripping this off, or they're trying to sell toys, well, no, they're kind of hearkening to like a larger genre that's part of something bigger. So if it looks similar to something else, for instance, well, it's not really not on purpose, but that's kind of how it is.
And it's not a bad thing. It's like, why not have more of the things you
love? Yeah. If you like giant robots, don't you want more things with giant robots? It's kind of like saying, like, oh, you know, a lot of people are saying, oh, Pacific Rim. Some people were saying it's a ripoff of Godzilla. And I was like, well, technically, everything after 54 is a ripoff of Godzilla. But so what? I like Godzilla. I'd like another one of those, please. And I like this. So, like, I would love if they make 4 other film franchises with giant robots fighting kaiju. That would be fine with me. And they can call them kaiju, too. I don't care.
Yeah.
I like Pacific Rim. I would like more. I would like a sequel to this Pacific Rim. I would like other movies that have giant robots fighting giant monsters, because I like it. I want more of it. So... But yeah, so I always try to refrain from coming out as an elitist, but I try to explain to people that it's not just about selling toys. It's about kind of acknowledging how it is, because in Japan it's also a very collector's mentality. Like Gundam, a lot of people, you know, buy all the different model kits and figures, and they want to collect them all. They want to get all of them. They like, no, oh, that's
building
this one.
Painting
that has this ability, and this one, and she, in this character actually builds her own Jaeger. And it's a little one.
Little scrapper.
Yep, and he's small enough where she can pilot it by herself, because it's not so big where they need 2 pilots. So she's such a fan that, like most collectors, she's building her own Jaeger and putting them together and this and that. So naturally, she would know all the different Jaegers. So if you understand the culture in which it comes from, it'll make sense to you. And if you don't understand, that is the culture surrounding it. So, you know, but again, I think for a lot of people, they got into Pacific Rim, but they didn't get into the genres that Pacific Rim inhabits, go kaiju and mecha. That's why when they see something else like it, or they see it, they think, oh, it's a ripoff. No. It's a part of the genre. Because whenever I get into something, I like to get into everything involved with it. That's why.
Discover all of the things within it.
Exactly. That's why, again, I love, as a kid, when my dad started showing me Godzilla movies, I didn't just watch just Godzilla. I wanted everything, so my dad would bring home.
Again, you can have a favorite, but why
limit yourself? Exactly. Like, I mean, I was watching Gorgo, I'd watch Gappa, I'd watch Yongari. I like giant monsters. I like kaiju.
Look at some of the movies we watch for the commentary. Some of them are awful.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, let's be real, folks. But you know, if I'm going to be into it, I'd rather see it and know about
it. Give it a chance.
Yeah. So, stand out right away. I want to put it is John Boyega's performance as Jake.
Yeah.
I think he was he's the star of the show, but he is the star of the show. So often in these movies, it's always like you have your lead.
Yeah.
And then you always hear, but such and such stole the movie. Like, oh, the supporting character they had was like the best part. It's really rare nowadays, it seems, when you have the star be the show stealer, and he was the best part of the movie. He was the most dynamic, most interesting character, and nothing against Charlie Hunnam in the first one, but I really like John Boyega. This is probably my favorite character I think I've seen John Boyega play.
And I think it's also because of his kind of stake and everything, because, you know, he's the son of Pentecost, and everything, you know, the backstory, you know, everything revolving around his character. I feel like, I mean, I guess that obviously in the first one there was that to an extent, but I don't know, I feel like because of our attachment, you know, to Pentecost from the first film, like, I don't know.
Yeah, and I was also curious, we have speculated how his interaction with Mako Mori was going to be, you know, Riko Kikuchi's character who came back, who, spoilers, dies at the end of the first act of the movie. And I was but the way she dies, it's very poetic and it's very nice. But when I saw it happen, they're not going to kill her off. And then I did that thing that I always do when I see a character look like they're going to die, and I think back to all the trailers. And I'm like, every scene we've seen of her in the trailers, we've seen. Oh shit, she's gonna die, isn't she?
And to be fair,
they pulled a Bryan Cranston from Godzilla.
Yeah. You know, her death had meaning.
Yeah, it kind of, and again,
it kind of sparked a fire under his butt. So he was like,
because I mean, and I don't know if this was just the way they wanted it, or was a scheduling issue with her. Maybe they couldn't, or maybe she just didn't want to. I don't know, but obviously, I was kind of bummed because she was actually my favorite character from the first one. You know, but I think I got over it quickly because A, it worked for dramatic purposes, and B, it wasn't a situation like, oh, now we're stuck with Jake. Well, no, Jake was fantastic. So while I mourn the loss of this great character from the first film, I'll always have her in the first film. You know, her character, her performance is intact in that movie. Yeah. And if she is passing the torch in this film, she did so with a very capable character and actor. So, you know, if going forward it's going to be kind of the Jake Pentecost show, I'm okay with that because the way he portrayed this character, and I like how he wasn't playing, you know, mini Idris Elba.
Yeah,
I like how he's a
very different character.
Yeah, and I love how he sets that up right away at the very beginning. He's like, I am not my father, you know, and but I also like that the whole movie he wasn't he wasn't just a bad boy. He got his shit together really quick, and you realize that he wasn't kicked out of the Jaeger program because he was bad or just couldn't live up to his father. It's just he was kind of just did something stupid, but he was always good, and he could always go back and have been. He just didn't want to, and honestly, we weren't at war, so it was kind of like, why bother? Whatever, you know, they kicked me out. Whatever, I got a chip on my shoulder. You know, da 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 da. There's no point, and to be fair, that's fine. But then when it kind of started back up and they kind of lured him back in, he was already kind of joining back up even before Mako's death, but I think when that happened, he realized that, well, it was her death that made us realize that there was a new threat. And right off the bat, the first kind of real casualty was, you know, someone he cared about. So I feel like, okay, immediately he stepped up and took to a sense of duty.
It was his last bit of family, technically.
Yeah, and it was interesting that he didn't have any ill will towards her, because one of the things we had wondered and speculated was if they're going to do a thing where, like, you know, like a jealousy thing, like, you got to have my father and I didn't, da 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 da. And it turns out, no, he was there with his dad. He kind of chose to. I mean, when his dad kicked him out of the program, he chose to just kind of run off. Yeah, but he never held it against his sister. So, and I like that. Like
and considering, you know, the dad died, you know, it's kind of like, even if he had some sort of ill will, which I don't think he did.
Yeah, I never got.
I feel like they would have gotten over it.
Yeah, he seemed like her and him were in the tight. Cool. Yeah, and the little bit of time they had on screen together, they really kind of cemented this. Like, yeah, they have a bond and a relationship. So they did a good job with the little they had in terms of their character interaction.
Yeah.
And I really like kind of his performance with Scott Eastwood's character, kind of his former partner, and I like how Scott Eastwood is the very kind of stoic, you know, kind of, you know, he's the guy that you see on the propaganda poster, the guy to be standing there with the Jaeger behind him, holding his helmet under. You know, he's that guy, and Jake is the guy who basically just gives him shit for being that guy. And there's a really great impression of him at one point, you know, like, get out of my Jaeger, Jake. You know, that whole bit. And again, and I love that. Like, but he's not a clown. Jake is not like dumb, but he's got swagger. He's cool. You know what I mean? He's Scott Eastwood's character is very much by the book. You know, Jake is more kind of like fly by the seat of your. where are my Top Gun fans at?
Oh, God.
Jake is Maverick. Scott Eastwood is I keep saying Scott Eastwood. I apologize. I forget his character's name. It'll come to me, I'm sure, as soon as we're done recording. But he's Iceman. Iceman is called Iceman because he's very meticulous, very calculating, very by the book, very good at being a pilot, but he's very just like, Whereas Maverick is, flying upside down at like Mach 2 or whatever. But they both get the job done. But one of them is scaring the shit out of you as he's doing it. But they both get the job done, and I love how these two are pilots because one is very kind of by the number, and the other is just like fuck the numbers. But because of that, they have a very kind of cool fighting style when you see them in Gypsy Avenger because they're kind of opposites that come together and they kind of complement. Because where one of them is lacking one thing, the other can kind of fill it in, and vice versa. So I actually I like how you can see early on wow, they're kind of like with each other.
Yeah.
They do care about each other, and they don't actually hate each other. They're just kind of being a little bro-ish with each other after it's been a while, and Jake's is all like, I don't want to be here, and the other one's all like, whoa, it's Ranger now, you have to address me in there. He's all like, kiss my ass, but it's more like a brotherhood. They feel like they're just kind of brothers ragging on each other, kind of. And so again, the way they play it up is very organic and natural, and I like that. One of the things I want to point out too is that John Boyega is actually one of the producers of this film. His production company, I think this is the first movie they did, so he had a lot to say on to what this movie was going to look and feel like. So a lot of the visual changes or differences from the first one were actually things he's decided to do. Him and DeKnight kind of sat down and worked out. They kind of had the same vision for it, but he's even said, I don't want to copy Del Toro's style. I want to see daylight shots of the Jaegers. I want to see some Jaegers fighting other Jaegers. I want to see, and I want to have more of a kind of an anime feel, to kind of set it apart from the first one. So it still has, the components that made the first movie a lot of fun, but adding kind of a new dimension or leaning in harder on one, because the first film was leaning a lot more heavy on the kaiju kind of genre. This one, I would say, leans a bit more heavy on the mecha. Again, it doesn't fall short. When you see the kaiju, it's awesome, but you can definitely see, they're pulling from certain influences this time around. But yeah, and he's even said too, I know a lot of people were saying, is it like Transformers? And while he didn't come out and dog Transformer, he said, I've seen sometimes movies where you're watching robots fight on screen and you have a hard time telling who's who or what's happening. I wonder what he was talking about. And he said when the robots fight in this movie, you want it to be very clear what's going on, and you want them to feel everything's very purposeful, not just a bunch of flashy CGI. And when the Jaegers fight, it feels like two big Greco-Roman style fighters going at it. You feel the heaviness, and you can see everything very clearly. It's not like a bunch of flashy metal all in front of your face where you're just like, shit. And you don't know who's won until the fight's over and one of them stops moving. Like, I guess Optimus wins. You can see very clearly the fight as a whole. And they do a lot of really nice wide shots. You can really see their scale. So even though, they do robot on robot fighting, it's very clear, and you don't really get lost in it. And for a film that is a kaiju film, the kaiju don't come in really towards the end. They kind of use the kaiju in this movie as like an end boss, which is kind of interesting how it
kind of leads into him.
Yeah, so now we're really getting into spoiler territory, not just Mako. So Charlie Day's character Newt, when he drifted with the kaiju brain in the first film, because technically he did it twice. Him and Burt Gorman's character, God, I can't remember anyone's name.
I know.
But they only drifted once together, but Newt drifted once. And I remember early, because again, Del Toro wrote a script called Maelstrom that was originally going to be the sequel, and then when he dropped out, he was just said, "I'm just going to produce." They rewrote it, and they said that we took some stuff from that script and other stuff we added new, we changed. And I remember early on that Charlie Day's character said he actually would like to be a villain because he's like, well, I drifted with the kaiju, and these are psychic beings, so who's to say that now I'm not their in? And so lo and behold, that's exactly what he is. He's the reason why the rift reopens. Has infused kaiju DNA with Jaegers, and I remember early on too, like Del Toro said we wanted to see a kaiju Jaeger hybrid. And the first one you see, Obsidian Fury, that big black one, you think it's a pilot. No, they open it up and there's a kaiju brain, and then there's the other ones later on where they kind of morph and literally become.
They look like they raged out
angels from Evangelion. Yeah. But I like how they visually then they look like hybrids, whereas the first time you really don't see it. It's just their mentality. It basically put a kaiju's instinct in a Jaeger's body. Again,
they did a lot of stuff in this movie that kind of subverted expectation, I feel like.
Yeah.
Again, I didn't expect a lot of that stuff. Because usually you're pretty good at, you can
spotting these things now, because we've all kind of seen the tropes and what have you. But no, this film did a lot to surprise. Because again, a lot of people say, well, how the hell the kaiju coming back? We closed the rift, or closed the breach, and I'm kind of like, well, if the aliens opened it once.
And the whole thing with the, again, I forgot her name, but the Chinese actor, woman who runs that company, who's trying to get the drones, instead of the Jaegers, so
which is actually a really interesting idea, because again, you're seeing a lot of that now, where we're leaning more towards drone warfare, and a lot of people are saying, well, yeah, but a computer can't, think as instinctively as an actual pilot. It can be hacked. These are all things Makomori even says. Yeah. But on the flip side, one pilot can pilot a single drone from anywhere in the world. So there is an interesting back and forth where it's like,
but they set her up to obviously look like she's behind it, and then that's when that scene with Charlie Day going home and fucking, Alice. Alice is a fucking kaiju brain.
That first one, and he's like, and at first when I first saw that, I thought I didn't catch he was a villain. I thought it was just maybe he gets a weird high from it.
I thought that too. Like an addiction. Later. I was really surprised.
Like a psychic rush, where he's like, because Gorman's character, you would say, no, I still get nightmares.
Yeah.
Because if you think of the things they would have saw, and I like how he's like, oh no, maybe he gets off on it, because he loves kaiju. So for him, he gets to kind of see the inner workings of a kaiju. And you find out that's how they've been infiltrating his mind. And it's kind of sad, too, because you can tell he's there, but he's even a few points, so you can kind of comes, he's like, that's the thing, it's not so much that they're in his mind, like he's being controlled. It's like he's been infected by it. Yeah. It's almost like the instinct of the precursors is infected him. I don't know if any of you guys have ever watched Tekken Man Blade, my favorite anime. Whereas, D-Boy's whole family become Tekken Man, and they get infused with Radam instinct, which are the aliens. And it's not like there's a single Radam controlling them. It's that there's a parasite in their mind, and it basically just gives you the instinct of a Radam. So you're still you. You still have your memories, and you still talk like you, but your behavior isn't now you behave in a way like a Radam when your goals and ambitions are that of theirs, because it's a part of their instinct. So I like that basically they kind of just infected him with their instinct, and because of that, his goal, he still plays it like the same character, but just now doing malicious things. So it's very interesting how they did that. But and he's been for 10 years setting this all up, so
infiltrated that company, and slowly under everyone's noses been
allocating funds here and there,
programming crap so that when it happened, it happened.
They weren't aware of it, what I mean? And he has so much power and, access.
I love that she, because we thought she was a villain, she kind of turned around and was like, this asshole fucking did all this under my nose, and she was going to do everything in her power to stop it. It was really good. It was good.
Because you find out that her ambition was actually to stop this from happening, which then makes you wonder, did she lose someone? Maybe her family killed, and she goes, this is my life's work, and you realize why now she's so dead set on getting the drones deployed, that she wants to make sure that probably whatever happened to her never happens to anyone again. And so the fact that it was her company that she built up for this exact reason is what brought them back, so to speak. So at the end, she steps up and she kind of saves a lot of, saves the day too. So in this film, we only have 3 kaiju, 2 Category 4s and a Category 5, who then, all courtesy of Newt, join together, become this big super
mega kaiju.
Who takes out and when the other Jaeger hybrids first attacked the drones, they killed pretty much all the other pilots, all the seasoned pilots, and then when they
they weren't that seasoned. That was the one thing I thought was a little rushed. Was all the
no, I don't mean those. I mean the hybrid ones, those white drone Jaeger.
Oh, yeah,
and that's why at the end these cadets have to step up.
Yeah.
And take, because
I
all
still
the
think
pilots
that was the one thing that's I felt was a little rushed. All of a sudden all these cadets could suddenly, I know they got their ass kicked, but they held their own for a little bit.
Well, they held their own because you got to remember too. Yes, these are Category 4 and one Category 5 Jaeger, but they're also fighting now, or kaiju, but they're also fighting in more advanced Jaegers.
I guess, yeah.
Because since what brought down the Jaeger program in the first one were the Category 4s, the big ones that started showing up, and we didn't get a Category 5 till the end fight of the movie, basically. Yeah. Whereas now, yes, these are 2 Category 4s and a Category 5, but the Jaegers they've since built Jaegers to kind of now stand on par with those. So that's why I kind of figured through they were in better Jaegers. But once they all fused together to be that giant super kaiju, they all got their asses handed to them pretty damn quick. Yeah, and I like how, they managed to close most of the breaches all over the world.
Well, they closed all of them. It's just 3. Those
three got out, yeah. And you learn something interesting is that they even point out, like, why are the kaiju coming? Well, we know the precursors want to terraform the Earth to kind of
Which they foreshadowed, but you didn't probably realize it earlier with what's his face, this character, saying that the kaiju blood, when it's mixed with the properties for the thrusters they wanted to make, like that was foreshadowing, but you didn't know it was foreshadowing.
With rare Earth elements, because a lot of people are saying, like, how the hell are you going to build a rocket boost that can lift the... And when they said... And Newt even says, there's no... It doesn't work. They're too heavy. And he goes, well, yeah, anything from our dimension can't do it, but, you mix it with their blood with rare earth, elements, and it becomes highly reactive. And you basically find out in this movie that what the kaiju were doing the whole time, they weren't destroying our cities.
Yeah.
They were trying to get somewhere, and our cities were all along the coastline, so they were naturally in their way. And basically, they're trying to get to places where their blood can react with rare earth elements, and it would basically, they want to set off the Ring of Fire, which lines the Pacific Rim, which for those who don't know geology, is basically the entire Pacific coastline on all ends. Is made up of mostly of now extinct volcanoes, but some still active, and that it kind of create, it's why they call it the Ring of Fire, because it used to be all volcanic. And basically, if all these volcanoes started going off, or, at least a few of them, we could cause, basically big volcanic clouds of ash all over the world, started wiping out life.
Basically, they want to do that and re-terraform the Earth.
Yeah, and they basically found a slick way. So basically, the final film, the fight, takes place in Tokyo, which is awesome. And this super kaiju is basically...
Technically, it's not Tokyo, but it's Japan.
Well, no, the actual...
Well, it's right outside of Mount Fuji.
Oh, that was...
Remember, because I said they put a Skytree in, but I'm like, wait, if they're near Mount Fuji, Skytree ain't there. But...
I think that if they're one... Yeah, but Tokyo, Mount Fuji's not too far from Tokyo. I think it's
not that far, but it's not where they showed it.
Was
I don't think.
Like, I don't know. We might have to double check, but the final fight is in Japan.
Yeah.
And at the very end, you see this super kaiju,
which looks badass.
Yeah, which is really badass. So cool looking. And he X+, get on that. And he's climbing up to the rim of Mount Fuji, and he's eventually going to throw himself in, and the reaction of his blood would just be like, and just set off this huge volcano, because Fuji's still active technically, and so you finally realize, oh, that's why they're coming out of the Pacific, and that's why they're not just destroying the cities. The cities, if you think about it, all along coastlines are kind of in the way. Mm-hmm. So to get to where they're going to have to cross through a city, and by and large destroy it. And usually we would kind of stop them, because if you look at it in the very first film, I think The Trespasser, that one that you see attacking the Golden Gate Bridge, if they said he got about a few hundred miles inland before they finally stopped him with a nuke. And it's like, well, if they're trying to just destroy the city, why would he have gone to... And I think he's probably going to Yellowstone, where that big volcano is. Yeah. Because that's one of the ones they say, if the Yellowstone volcano goes off, it's going to destroy most of North America. Well... Yeah, but I'm just saying, he had to go through, San Francisco to get to it, and, so I like how they took something from the first film and played it up. I mean, I don't know if that was maybe something they had planned or something they just built off of, but essentially they're going to use our own geology against us, and the kaiju are essentially just walking bombs, basically, and... So, I don't know, and there's a great shot, too, when they eject out of a Gypsy Avenger, no, she's not Avenger, but when she ejects out of that 3 Ranger Jaeger, she lands right at the base of this really awesome Gundam statue, and I'm just kind of like, where's that Gundam movie? Where's that Gundam movie? But yeah, so again, it was different from the first film, but I still enjoyed it. It was something different. And, Del Toro was still an advisor on it. He still was
Yeah.
involved. It wasn't like he was complete. It's not like he just wrote a check and it was like, all right, he was not involved with it,
Yeah.
No, he was too busy making an Academy Award-winning film. Shape of Water, if you haven't seen it.
So good.
Yeah. But he was still there. And you could still feel like his touch. But he, at the same time, he's even said, too, that, when I'm a producer, I accept the fact that I'm not directing. And even if I
Yeah.
see something that I'm like, okay, I would do it differently, I respect the fact that that's that director's vision. Because, he's been involved with productions earlier and much earlier in his career where there was studio meddling. And he talks about, his frustrations with that. Like, hey, you hired me. If you don't want my vision, don't hire me. So he's very good about taking a step back. So as long as nothing's being done to kind of tarnish the narrative or the franchise, he's very much like, hey, it's your show. You do what you got to do.
Yeah.
And I think they did a great job with it. I really, again,
It was super good, super fun.
Yeah, and some of our friends we went with, actually, they like this one
Yeah.
better than the first one. And again, our liking of the first one more is not a slam to this movie. It's just our personal preference. If you're not a huge Del Toro fan, you might like I like more kind of darker imagery, more nighttime stuff.
Yeah.
Visually speaking, it's the reason why, Godzilla '84 is my favorite Godzilla movie for a lot of reasons. But one of the reasons I also love it so much is that I love it's always at night.
Yeah.
It's a very kind of dark feel. And a lot of the fight scenes in the first Pacific Rim were at night, which for me, I prefer. But again, it's not like this is a deal breaker. So I really like this film. As it stands right now, it's making more money faster than the first movie, and it's a little cheaper. I think the first one was about 180 million to make. This one's about 100. It was about 150, maybe 150 some change. So it's a little bit cheaper, which is kind of surprising because the visuals on screen don't look any cheaper.
To be fair, considering CG keeps getting better.
Yeah, and the first film was ILM who did it, and this is a different effects house who did this one, and ILM is a bit more prestigious, so they probably have a bigger price tag, so you're not getting better visual effects, you're just kind of paying for a more expensive brand name, so that's probably sure part of it. But yeah, it's already made back most of its production budget, so it's doing better. We'll see if we get a third one, but they left it off for a third one, but as it stands right now, I'm glad we got a sequel.
Yeah.
And if this is all we get, they know we got two really great kaiju films and a really good example of how you can do kind of an anime-style mecha movie in live action. So maybe we'll finally get that Evangelion movie. Maybe we'll finally get that Gundam movie. I know they're doing Robotech, a.k.a. Macross. Maybe we'll get a Macross proper movie. But yeah, so there's a lot of potential because of what this film I think was able to pull off. But anyway, guys, there's not much really more to say about it. It lived up to our expectations, our hopes, and it's just a good, fun movie because I think that's what Pacific Rim ultimately was always supposed to be, just a good popcorn movie, kind of a throwback, kind of Showa era style kaiju flick where you just get your friends together, eat some junk food, and have a lot of fun watching a movie. Whether you're watching on the big screen or at home, it's a good time to be had. So if you have not already seen it, please go out, support it, whether it's in the theater or just home release. Just do yourself a favor and have a good time with this one because that's ultimately what it's there for, is to have a good time. So thanks for watching, guys. Keep checking in with us, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace!
Peace.